Hello and welcome to Tell Me Are You Not Entertained or Tell Me Rune episode 8. This is going to be our most niche podcast that we've ever done so far and probably ever will do. This is going to be called the Linkin Park cast, where we reviewed Linkin Park's new CD and go over old stories and how we got into the band and all that other stuff. Before we begin, I'm Andrew, your co-host.
And I'm Leilani.
I'm so sorry about that. I got my intros mixed up because I always want to be like, I'm your local movie buff, Andrew. And I'm just like, that's not the right thing.
Yeah, he's a multitasker because he has 3 or 4 different things going on.
I got a lot. But yeah, this is Linkin Park. Linkin Park just came out with their newest album. It came out, right now, since we're talking about it, it came out last Friday, which was March 19th, but we're talking about this now.
We're in May.
May 19th. I knew it started with an M-A. So, it's gonna be May. But it's almost over, so that was way late. So yeah, it came out May 19th, last Friday. We're talking about it now. Leilani and I, just to let everybody know, we are / were / maybe still am Linkin Park fans, like really big Linkin Park fans.
I will always be a Linkin Park fan, so I just want to put it out there.
I mean, I feel like I'll still be a Linkin Park fan as long as Hybrid Theory and Meteora still roam this earth. I will still be a Linkin Park fan. And, I mean, thanks to you, I found Huntington Party.
It's a hunting party, but for some reason, I always call it the Huntington. I don't know why.
It sounds more regal. The Huntington Party. Put it on, we're going to go fight the hounds. Or no, you use the hounds to hunt the foxes.
Why the hell would you fight the hounds?
I don't know, maybe it's like the Game of Thrones thing. It's like, Xerxes, Jamie, and the hound. Anyways, yeah, the hunting party. I've only listened to it once, and I really love it. But we'll get into all that later. Let's talk about the newest album entitled One More Light. It's only 10 songs. And let's get overall let's get our overall feelings about it out, maybe in one word, and then or one sentence, and then we can go from there. So what's your word / sentence / characteristic of this new album?
Words are escaping me now. The first sentence that comes to mind is I love you, but no. That's basically my general census of the album.
I was about to say, are you speechless for a good reason or not?
No, and it's sad and disheartening to me that I'm kind of speechless because of this new album and the direction that they're going. And I understand that every band is going to go to a different direction, but it's way off course, in my opinion, for being a fan for so long.
That is true. Every band does go in different directions. Even One Direction went into different directions. Shout out to you, Harry Styles. I really don't know why. I think because he was so different looking. He was the main one that is now everybody's like, oh, he's so cute and everything. I don't know.
Are we really talking about Harry Styles right now in this Linkin Park podcast?
I mean, he goes with their new sound, I guess. Anyways, actually, I don't know that for a fact. I have not heard any part of Harry Styles' music, so.
It's actually a really good album, just saying.
Well, I'll get into the carpool karaoke with them later. But for now, my review of the new Linkin Park CD. It's all of my Linkin Park nightmares come true. basically. It reminded me why I stopped listening to this band. And then now I don't know where they're going. Like I stayed true to them for majority of their albums. Loved Hybrid Theory, loved Meteora. I stuck around. I liked Reanimation, even though it was just a remix of every song that they had. What I've done, that Minutes to Midnight, I even stuck through that. It was really slow, but I still stuck through that because it had a lot of deep meaning behind it. Was there a CD in between those two?
Wait for what? After Minutes to Midnight?
And before 1,000 Suns.
Well, I mean, if you count like the live performances, like live in Texas, which that came after Meteora, and then Road to Revolution, that came out in between Minutes to Midnight and 1,000 Suns.
Yeah, no, pass. Live doesn't count. I mean, basically, I would say Minutes to Midnight was my dip, right? I mean, it's way different. They got Rick Rubin. It was way different. I kind of dipped a little bit. And I was like, oh, this is not that great. 1,000 Suns pulled me back in for a couple of their songs. Still way different, but I was still into it. And then they went away for a little bit, and I went to college. I gravitated towards more bands and got into more music styles. And I totally bypassed Hunting Party or Huntington Party, however you decide to say it.
Well, you actually forgot right after 1,000 Suns was Living Things, which was only like a 2-year gap.
That's right. I remember listening to Living Things, and I totally did not like it. So that's where the drop off totally happened, and I started getting into other bands, other people's musical taste and stuff. Because I mean, you're in college, you're going to hear so many different people's opinions and perspectives. So I just went along with it. So Linkin Park totally dropped down. My friend kept on trying to get me to listening to Hunting Party or Huntington Party, and I was just like, no, I'm not into it. And he was trying to get me so hard, and I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do it. So finally, One More Light comes out, and I'm like, oh, maybe. And then the 4 singles happen, and it's just like slow song after slow song after slow song after slow song. No resemblance of any actual instruments, and it's just like beats, and I don't know. I'm just speechless. And then I listened to Hunting Party through your advice, and I was like, this was one CD before. Like, I heard Chester getting angry, I heard actual heavy guitars, I heard drums, and I mean, it doesn't sound like Linkin Park. Like, it sounds more like alternative rock, or a more like, I don't know, I don't want to say anything bad about it, but it was more kind of like just a normal, just like rock sound from like 90s and the 2000s, which isn't Linkin Park. Kind of like a Sum 41 kind of. Like, you can hear it, not like, oh, gosh, don't give me that look. I didn't mean it that way. Get off of it. You know what I mean, right?
No, I'm judging you hardcore for you comparing that to Sum 41. Like, bad. I know you like them, but no. Absolutely not.
I mean, I like their earlier stuff. I don't like their new stuff. But, I mean, you know what I mean. But it sounded different, but it was still resemblance. I don't know. What do you have to say about their progression?
Well, I mean, I kind of like the progression because, of course, getting hooked on Hybrid Theory when that came out, and it was still rock/rap feel, which, again, a lot of artists or bands at that time, they were mixing the two a lot. So you got like Limp Bizkit, and then I know not to compare those two whatsoever, but I'm talking about the hybrid, aka Hybrid Theory.
I know I gave you a face, but I really listened the heck out of Limp Bizkit's Hot Dog Water and Chocolate Starfish so much. Ugh, that's so hard to like proclaim. I don't know what else to say.
I own it. I don't care because that was really good for that time, for that coming out. And I think a lot of bands for that time period, I think was paving the way of mixing things. Because, I mean, I don't think if they didn't have those kinds of bands then, they wouldn't have, like, electrocore bands now. So, but yeah, going from Hybrid Theory to Meteora, I think there was an even, like, transition for them. They were still trying to find... it was still their feel of music. But then when they went to Minutes to Midnight, it did sound poppier. But they were still sticking true to their sound. And then when 1,000 Suns came out, I liked the transition that they were doing with their music too, because I think that was their full transition point where they were experimenting way more with their sound than they were previous albums. So, and I loved 1,000 Suns so much. Living Things, again, I think they were still tweaking certain things and trying to experiment, but it wasn't the greatest in my opinion. I still liked it. There were still certain songs that I really, really liked. Like, I liked Lost in the Echo and Burn It Down. But then when it jumps to the Hunting Party, it feels like they were going back to basics, but even harder. Like granted, you still have Mike rapping and Mike having his beats and Shinoda and all that, but it felt like they were sticking true to just the hardcore metal. And so when you go from that to One More Light, this album, it's mellow as hell, which I get. They're like, especially when seeing certain articles and interviews with Mike, he doesn't understand why they were so angry. But I'm like, dude, you just had the Hunting Party and you sound pretty freaking angry in that. So, I get it. They're trying something new, but if you have to have some kind of like basis, some kind of base of where you came from and inside your music. You just can't go completely left, disregard everything that you've done in the past, and not have that foundation to build upon the new music. That's just how I feel.
I agree. I mean, I think it goes back to what we know Linkin Park to be, and like we were talking earlier this weekend about the first Hybrid Theory and how it just sounds like they're just going all in with major guitars and instruments and everything. And I think the real disconnect for me is in this new album, I don't feel like there's actual instruments in it. Like I remember this singles coming out and I'm just like, what is Brad and all the other people doing while this like beat is just going over and over again? Like, to me, like, at least in 1,000 Suns, yes, it sounds completely different, but you can hear the drums, the actual drums in there. There's guitars in there. Yeah, they might be power chords or like one hit for a good number of beats, and then they do it again. But there's actual instruments, and that's what I learned Linkin Park to be. And like, Minutes to Midnight was slow. It was very, very like dramatic and deep and just like it. You don't play it to go to the gym with, but at least there was some form of instruments. And I don't know. I always think of like, oh, there's guitar, there's this, there's that. But I mean, in all the documentaries I watched of Linkin Park, which I watched a ton of, like anything that they had on YouTube, I would watch it. I mean, everything that they would say is Mike would always go like, oh, we don't want somebody to listen to the radio and hear one of our songs or hear something similar to one of our songs and then go, oh, that's a Linkin Park song. And I was just like, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. Like, I get it, but you also need that brand recognition. You don't want people like Apple. Like, Apple doesn't want you just not buying their stuff. Like, they don't want to just change up their logo all the time or change up everything, like, drastically to where people are just like, oh, yeah, I don't want that thing because it keeps on changing. I don't know. That's my whole thing.
No, and I completely get that. And I know that, like, certain bands, like, for instance, I know we talked about this before, but, like, Blink-182, when they went on for I don't know how many albums, and everything, they had their staple sound over and over and over again. And again, it just felt like they were tweaking it more and more, but it was still Blink-182. And then when they came out in 2003 with their self-titled album, where they had Down and what else?
Syndrome.
There you go. But they had those type of songs on there. And I know as a fan, I was kind of like, it was more mellow and more adultish type of themes in their songs. And I'm like, I kind of like the teenage angst type of thing. But I understand they're in their freaking 30s or late 20s at the time. And I'm like, I don't grow up type of thing. So, but I get it, because that's what Linkin Park is doing. They're becoming old men and they're not as angry. And so, but the thing is, when Blink came out with their newest album, California, it was still going back to their roots, but still having the more adult themes type of songs, and also having it was a good combination of Blink-182, the self-titled, and then going back to like Enema of the State. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. Yes, you can still create music and have a new kind of like identity within the songs, but don't completely just erase what you've built from the get-go.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, because I love that Blink-182 self-titled album. Like, I used to listen to it a lot, but it is definitely different. But you can still feel their own personality and their own roots in it. Like, the first song, I don't regret right now. I'm feeling this. That's it. Gosh, I had to sing the whole first part. Feeling this has a different, like, rhythm to it, but you can definitely hear their stuff in it. And then even Miss You has references to the Nightmare Before Christmas and all this other stuff. So, I mean, it's still them, but it's definitely completely different. I always go back to my favorite Blink-182 album, which I thought was a good mix between joking and having hard topics in it, was Take Off Your Jacket. Take Off Your Pants, and yeah, that album is perfect, because it has the story of a lonely guy, but then it has that one like 15-second song of I'm not going to talk about it, of Mark Hoppus. It's Christmas Eve and I've only wrapped 2 presents. That one. But yeah, but I mean, that's what I want Linkin Park to do, but they always do these like drastic changes from album to album, and I'm just like, why can't you do a little bit of this and a little bit of that? Like, I mean, Minutes to Midnight was so slow for a majority of them that we got No More Sorrows, bleeding out, and all this other stuff, and you're just like, and it's like, yeah, this is it. I want more of those, but you had 3 like hyped up songs, and then like the rest of the album was just like Valentine's Day and bleh, Shadow of a Day, and it's like, more days. Like, can we get more like Happy Days? Can we like, let's make Happy Days. Let's just remake Happy Days and put it on the album. Like, come on.
No, and I completely agree. And I just referencing back to Blink-182 one more time, but Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, again with the mixture of the themes of the song. One of the things that you have like First Date on there, but then you go to Stay Together for the Kids, and that's a totally night and day songs, but it goes so well with that album. So it's finding that niche of being different. And with the new album, I see where they're trying to go, and they're trying to also go with out of their comfort zone of going with something. Again, it feels kind of like they were trying to do electrocore, but with electrocore, they're still instruments within the song, and I feels like there's lack of Brad and Phoenix within the songs. And they're in some of them, but a lot of them, you could not pick them out whatsoever. It feels like Mr. Han is like, and Shinoda are just doing the beats to everything.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, I don't know. I just, this whole album to me at some point just seems like a one, it does seem like a little bit of a sellout, a little bit, just because I know, Mike, I'm gonna stab myself in the face later, because I mean, there are reports that this is a huge like sellout and all this other stuff. Like, if you think this is sellout, I'm gonna punch you in the face. Chester said that in one article. Mike said, if you think this is a sellout, go stab yourself in the face. Which I want to say thank you for telling your fans who really care about you to go stab and punch each other in the face, because that's what fans want to hear about from their bands, that they actually like think about it. If fans are getting upset about something you're doing, that means they obviously care about it. Like, they're not, if they didn't care about it, they just wouldn't buy your album and they wouldn't say anything about it. But these people that actually care and have been with you throughout the years through this journey, and they don't like it, like, you should just be like, oh, well, give it another listen. We're going to play it, and that's it. Like, we already came out with it. Like, there's nothing you can do at this point. But to get so angry and to be like, I'm going to punch you in the face if you say that, or go stab yourself in the face, to me, it's like a lack of professionalism, and I don't know. It's kind of, I don't know.
I mean, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here real quick. So I completely get your side, but then also from like the artist perspective, I guess holy crap, that is my phone, and I apologize.
Yeah, it is.
My bad. So, wait, why is my phone? Oh, never mind.
Welcome to our guest, Big Ben, to the podcast. What time is it, Big Ben?
6:30. So, like I was trying to say before my phone interrupted me, is the fact that, as from an artist's point of view, when you create this art form, and then for how long that it's taken you, I think Mike said 12 to 18 months. And then you get I guess this is the first album, which kind of surprises me, that they got that big of a backlash from their fans and also outsiders that aren't fans or whatever, like, I don't know, other reviewers have said about it. But that it's very disheartening. And especially because I've read a lot of the comments from the fans, and you have some that's completely right, where they are right side. They're like, oh, we completely love it. We like the new sound, yada, yada, yada. Then you have a completely left. They completely are bashing it and calling them sellouts, and then just saying, completely everything that they can negative about the album. Nothing's good enough. Then you have people in the middle, which kind of like me, kind of, where I can kind of see both sides of it, where trying to gather my thoughts because they're just going crazy with so many. The fact is that as a fan, you have the right to not like something, but still be a fan of that person, because I feel as though the fans are going like completely crazy over the album, that they don't even want to be fans of them, that they're disregarding all their work that they've done before. So like, oh, I don't want to be a fan anymore, yada, 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 just because this one album. And so then you have the ones that are kind of kiss asses and like, oh, I completely love it. No, you can say you don't like it. That's completely fine. You have the right to do that, especially if you've been a fan for so long. So with that, I just feel as though you can not like this album and still go to a concert and still support the band. And I think that's where it kind of gets lost in transition with the Mike saying like, stab yourself in the face. Because I think he's just saying that to all the negative comments, like the really, really harsh ones, not just the fans that are like, hey, I kind of don't like this, I'll still support you type of thing. So,
I mean, when you say something like that, though, there's no parameters. You can't just be like, because when it comes off like that, it comes off to everybody who doesn't like the album. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the album. I'm not going to sit here and like make Linkin Park jokes like everybody makes Nickelback jokes or anything, because everybody doesn't like them. But I think this album is more disheartening than anything, just because I did listen to Huntington Party, and it's just like.
I love the fact that you keep calling Huntington Party like I do when it's Hunting Party. So I think it's funny. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I think it's always going to be Huntington Party to me. After I made that weird fight the hounds, like this is a weird royal family who's fighting hounds instead of going out catching foxes. But I mean, it's just so disheartening that this was the album right before One More Light. Like, it's just disheartening to me that they were on this evolution, and then they went back, and then they went straight the other way. It was almost like a catapult where you're like, they're like progressively going backwards, and then all of a sudden it's just like, nope, we're gonna go way far the opposite way, and it's just like, but you had all the instruments in that one. Why can't we have it in this one? Why can't we put more beats on there, but also have this like guitar maybe being distorted halfway through the song, or I mean, having harsher lyrics than calling people idiots. And I don't know, it just feels like a huge joke to me at certain points when I'm listening to it. And I don't hate it. People are going to be fans of who they're going to be fans of. And bands have a right to make whatever music they want. If they think it's good and they want to play it, then go ahead. That doesn't give the right for people to be like, oh, I hate this band. You can hate it, just don't. Who gives a crap? Like, do what you want.
I do just feel as though like Mike and Chester, like with their comments that they said, they just need to kind of grow a thicker skin, because I kind of feel as though this is the first album where this big of a backlash has happened and they don't know how to handle it. So they're just saying exactly how they feel, which I mean, I completely understand, but I don't know. It's like, dude, you're still gonna be a huge band no matter what, because your prior work, this album, yes, you want people to like it, but you're always gonna have one album that people don't like. It's okay to have that one album, because I'm sure like other acts, completely different genres, like Britney Spears, she has albums that flopped. And then, I mean, I don't know if it was just one of those things that they're just taking it so to heart with how much they worked on it and in the direction that they wanted people to accept them in, that's why they're getting so angry.
I mean, I think that's what it is. I think it's because he did mention that it was 12 to 18 months that it takes to make an album. I mean, granted, it's not like every single day and every single hour of that 12 to 18 months is just spent in the studio doing it. I mean, they're probably going on tour, dabbling some notes and coming up with beats in the back of the bus or something, or talking to other people and getting ideas and whatnot. And that starts and that's where the 18 months starts. And then they go into the studio. And granted, Chester and Mike, because they're producing and they're the vocals, they're going to be in the studio the longest out of everybody, especially after this album, because there wasn't a lot of instruments. So it was like, all right, come in for your half a day. We'll have stuff catered, and then everybody else can go home. I just had to make that joke. Anyways, so, I mean, I've been at that point where I, like, work on something for a long time, and then somebody else has read it or seen it, and then they're just like, oh, well, I don't like this part of it. And you're like, well, why not? And it's like, oh, because of this. And it's like, no, that's not how it's supposed to be at all. I wrote it how it's supposed to be. And I get angry, but I'm not sitting there going like, I want you to stab yourself in the face because you don't like it.
Actually, I think you do. I honestly think you do.
Maybe it's in the tone I use, but I never say that directly to anybody. But I mean, I get the frustration about it. But I mean, to lash out at your fans, I mean, because these, I mean, you're always gonna have the new haters who are just like, oh, this sucks, and nothing ever is gonna be universally loved. Like back in the day, Michael J. Fox was like the it boy. You had Michael Jackson, who was everybody bought the album and everybody was into it. Now with social media, everybody can express how much they don't like something. Michael Jordan was the guy. He's known as the greatest basketball player of all time. Did he have haters back in the day? Of course. The Bulls had to play somebody, and there's going to be those diehard fans that are like, oh, I hate Michael Jordan and the Bulls. I mean, Tom Brady is the best quarterback in football. I'm a Dolphins fan. I want the guy getting hit every play. Like, I want him out. Get him out of the game. So, to me, it's just like, now you have LeBron, who has to deal with social media and everybody has a voice. I mean, will LeBron James have universal love? Maybe, but we'll never know because he's always going to be tarnished for something that he did, probably the move to Miami, and people hated it. But I mean, everybody has their opinions, and now everybody's voicing them. So now everything at best could be 80-20, but a lot of things are going to be 50-50 because everybody has an opinion about it. So nothing is ever going to be universally loved anymore, especially not bands, because everybody has their own opinion. Some people love K-pop, other people like hardcore, like screamo music, like, and there's a lot of people that won't waver, and then there's some people that just dabble in everything, and they just love, like, oh, I like this song and I like this band and it's just like you just roll with the flow with some of this stuff. But I think, to your point, they should have just went with it. Like, if somebody asks you, hey, there's a lot of backlash about this album, you have to know when you're making this album, if you're Linkin Park, you have to know this is way different than what we've done. I take away the Steve. You can see Steve Aoki remix some of your songs and see how many hits it was on YouTube, and you could be like, oh, let's do more of those songs. Maybe they'll like it more, and it'll sound way different, so we're not playing the same song over and over again. But you have to know that this is going to be a way different album than you've ever produced, and it's going to get either really low highs or really low lows from all types of fans. You might get new fans, you might lose old fans. That's the risk you take while producing music. When you produce a new CD, you have that risk. So if you're in that mindset, when somebody says, hey, there's a lot of backlash, you just go, well, you go with it. You don't tell people I'm going to punch you in the face or stab yourself in the face. Like, you really got to make sure you're ready for this. Like, yeah, make sure the album's ready, but make sure you're mentally ready to handle what criticism. So, I don't know. That's just my thing. I didn't mean to go off on that, but come on, Mike. I know you're listening. But yeah, so, but yeah, I don't know. That's just my whole thing. So, but yeah, I don't know. Go ahead.
Well, did you like any aspect of the album whatsoever? Like, it was there a certain song that you liked or a certain element of it that you're like, okay, this could kind of, I can see where they're going. This is kind of good, but then what the hell was this?
So when it first came out and you told me that it was on Spotify, I listened to it on Spotify, just listened to it. Basically, I wasn't doing much of anything else. I may have looked at, like, Fantasy Movie League or doing something else, but I was mainly just, like, diving into the album to see how it flowed and what's going on. And initially, I did not like it at all. I was just like, this is really boring. This is one song almost put me to sleep, and I was like, this is not great. And then I listened to Huntington Party right after that, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Now I hate the album even more. But then this past weekend, I was editing a video, and I decided to listen to it again just to get a better clear, and I wanted to listen to it uninterrupted, having it all the way flow, see how it heard. And as background music, it didn't sound bad. Like, it went with whatever I was doing, and I was like, okay, this is cool, this is fine, I'm good with this. And I mean, it wasn't bad. To me, it wasn't bad. The only thing is that it doesn't differentiate between what I hear on the radio and what I think Linkin Park can sound like. Because it's just like, I don't know, it just seems like what the music is now, but they're late to the game, and it sounds just a little different. Like there's a ton of these, like, DJ guys that are just coming out with good beats, and then they'll grab a singer like Selena Gomez or Charlie XCX or something, and then throw it on there, and then you're like, oh, who's this new person? And it's like, oh, this is Miriam Musa with Charlie XCX, and it's like, oh, well, I really like this thing. But then you got the Chainsmokers, and then you got all these other Kygo with It Ain't Me with Selena Gomez, and it's like all these people are just popping up. Calvin Harris with Frank Ocean, and you're just like, oh, all these people are just popping up. And then you have this Linkin Park album, and it's just like, this just sounds like that it sounds like they're trying to get to that, but they have an in-house vocal group. Like they're not trying to get features on the album, like, oh, this is Daria's song. Now this is Selena Gomez song. Oh, and then this is Zed with Alyssa Cara. So, and some of the lyrics are a little off to me. So it just sounds like, I don't know, it just sounds like they're trying to mimic them, and it's just a little off. But then I was listening to the thing, and then as Spotify does, if you've listened to the album, it'll take you to the next song, and it went straight down to Hunting Party. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. Like, I was sitting there going like, oh, One More Light's not too bad while I was editing. And then it just went to Hunting Party. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, Linkin Park. This is Linkin Park now. So.
No, and I kind of felt the exact same way as far as listening to the album, because I have to say that I'm one of those people, when I listen to the album, I try to listen to it all the way through and try to give every song a chance, but if I kept skipping like crazy during the album, that's bad. And I mean, from my perspective, it's bad. And I know them when they released Heavy. I really, really liked that song. Just because, when I listen to songs, usually I'm a very sad person, so I listen to the lyrics first. Because when you're in a sad mood, you listen to the lyrics. If you're in a good mood, you listen to the beats. So I really connected with the lyrics. And then, I mean, even though it was like very mellow, I really liked it. And then again, threw me kind of off when there was a feature on it, because usually they do features on their remixes, not their main title album. So that threw me off, because I'm like, this is definitely different, but I'll go with it. But then once they started releasing different singles like Battle Symphony and then Good Goodbye, it felt like the exact same thing. Again, like the song's just tweaked just a little bit, but it's the exact same song. And then as I was listening to the album, I'm like, everything is neutral toned. Nothing is hyped up. Nothing, not even one song that you would probably mosh to or hit someone or something, anything like that. Everything's neutral. So I, again, was thrown off by that completely. So I was like, okay, well, let me listen to this when I'm in a better mood, so maybe I can appreciate it. Even listening it all the way through again, in a different state of mind, I still couldn't get into it. The just that one song, Heavy, was the only one that really stuck out to me the most.
Yeah, and I get you, and that's where I'm from. Like, again, I can put it on in the background, but when it really comes down to music, I'm not going to be picking it to, like, just listen to it. Like, I know you're not a huge fan of them, but I really like Paramore songs of I Told You So and Hard Times. Like, I couldn't get it out of my head, so I decided to listen to the album. And I'm sitting there going, like, this sounds way different than any Paramore CD, but I can still enjoy it, and I can still hear the beats, and I can still, like, visualize them, like, dancing and doing all this stuff. And it has way different genres in it. And I'm just like, why can't it Linkin Park kind of do something like this? Again, just do the mix thing. Like, be a little bit more balanced. Like, there's happiness and balance. But I don't know. I just think they could have, I mean, that 12 to 18 months could have been spent a little bit better at making the album great. I mean, again, I'm sure they really worked hard and had to cut out a lot of songs. I mean, I remember watching the documentary for Minutes to Midnight and saw their process, and they had a ton of, like, they had like 30 songs because they just go and record on the road and stuff. And then it's like, oh, we have to cut these down to like our top 12. And when you work so hard on all these songs and then you're just like, oh, I got to cut some of them, like.
Well, and this album almost feels as though this is the album of all the cut songs that made it. It was the mellow, neutral songs that were supposed to go on the other albums that were harder, and they're like, no, this is not, it's too mellow. We're not going to put it on there, or it just didn't feel right for the theme, and so they just stuck it all together with this album.
Kind of like the B-sides and the swan songs kind of thing. Yeah, like I definitely agree with that. Again, I don't want to put it down like that because I'm sure they really spent really a long time on it. But I mean, I had that because the Fine Brothers had Mike Shinoda react to Kids React to Linkin Park, which you can see on the Fine Bros Entertainment on YouTube. And I mean, Mike cuts in with a lot of what he talks about in the new album. And when he said 12 to 18 months, I had that ringing in my head as the songs were going. And I'm just like, in my head, I also said, really? Like, I don't know. I don't want to belittle it because it's just like, I know it takes so much work and effort and time and all this other stuff. But it's like, really, these were the best? Like, this was what 12 to 18 months was spent on? Like, and now we won't get another album for another like 3 years because of their quote unquote process and their tour schedule and all this other stuff. So it's like, also, I wanted to call Mike out on what he said in the Fine Brothers interview where he said, oh yeah, all the songs sound really mellow and stuff, but when you see it live, like it gets way more rockish and stuff, and it feels more rockish and all this other stuff. Well, I just wanted to say when they were on Jimmy Kimmel and they played two of their songs, it still sounded like it was on the CD, all mellow and sad and drab. Like I still did not feel any guitar. I didn't feel any rock. I was just like, Brad's up there with a guitar. I don't even think it's plugged in. Like, really? This is like, I don't know. I don't even know what to, I don't know. I feel like he's almost like in the middle. Like, you know how you go to like a state and you're in the middle? Like there's on the border and you're just like, oh, I'm in Tennessee and oh, I'm in Virginia or whatever. Like, I think Mike's just standing in the middle and he's just like, this is our new sound, but it sounds more rockish when you go to the concert, but it's still this sound, but it's still rockish. It's like, no, just pick one. It's all beats or you want it to be rock. Like, just stand on what you want it to be.
Well, I mean, he has so many ways that everybody's coming at him, and then he's trying to defend it, the new art form that they're doing. I mean, in different ways. Like, I get where he's saying that it could be more rockish, because when you hear something live versus album, I mean, it should sound the same. When you go to, I've seen lots of artists where I went and I'm like, they sound exactly like their studio album, or if not better. Like Kaleo, when I saw them, I've seen them twice and they sound exactly like their album, and in certain songs they sound 10 times better. So I get where he's saying that, come see us live, you'll see a different flow to the songs, I guess, or you'll hear it differently. But if you're saying, because I have not seen any of their new stuff live at all, so I really don't have an opinion yet. I will on August 19th, I believe, when I see them live in concert. But I mean, if he keeps going back and forth with saying, hey, we sound more rockish this way, or back and forth with it, I get what you're saying, that he should just stick with his guns and say, this is our new sound. Please accept it. If you don't, sorry, this is the route we're going this time around with this album.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I mean, we get it. I mean, not every song is going to be amazing. I mean, like, if you go, they're not like one of these like major rock groups that have been around since like 40 years, kind of like Metallica. They could play all their old stuff, greatest hits, every night, and everybody would be like, yeah, every song was great. Every song was fantastic. Or even Journey with the New Kid, you can say, oh, they just played all their good ones. And they have like 40,000 different songs that they could play. Whereas Linkin Park is like 6 albums, and it's like you can't play hard-hitting ones from every album or whatever.
And I know I'll probably get flack for this because I'm a Metallica fan too. But even with Metallica, it feels as though they don't change that much. And it's one of those things is like, okay, we've heard this song done so many different times and whatnot. And I've liked, I love, of course, all their older stuff. But once like past Saint Anger or anything like that, it just feels kind of repetitive. And it's one of those things that you wish that they would find something new, still stick with their niche of that rock, but still kind of switch it up a certain way. And I feel as though those are one of those bands, they've been around for so long that this is the formula that we know how to do, so we're not gonna mess with it whatsoever. Versus bands like Linkin Park, they're like, okay, we've done this formula for so long, can we try something new? And again, they've done that over the years, and this is their new formula that they decide to stay on.
Yeah, no, Metallica is fine the way it is. I mean, they tried that one new album, and it didn't sell that well. That Magnetism one with the coffin and all the magnets on it, on the cover of it. I'll tell you right now, they tried to pull that out, and then it was just like, people were just like, yeah, you could just play all your other great hits, like Enter Sandman and One. And I even watched the Netflix live show that they had with Kane guy who was in Spider-Man. And it was just fantastic. They altered their songs intro. They would have interludes that they put into the songs. They elongated songs. They shorted. They mixed the two songs together, and like mashed them up. And I just thought it was just like fantastic. I was like, I heard every song that I wanted to. And they even switched it up a little bit to make it even sound way better than it was when I first heard it.
Is
so
that Death Magnet?
Yeah, Death Magnet. There it is. So I thought it was Death Magnet. I just didn't want to say Death Magnet and then just be completely wrong. Yeah. So I mean, but yeah, that's a band that's well established in its genre, and if they change anything, they could see serious flack from it. So it's just like, we're just gonna sit back here and we're just gonna play all the old songs. And I mean, they still get kids that are still into their songs. So it's like, they don't need to grab anybody else differently.
Well, and if I'm not mistaken, because I think I remember in the Rolling Stone magazine, back when they had Load and then Reload, back in 1996 and 97, they were changing their sound somewhat, and they were getting some kind of pushback, even though I remember that's when I started getting into Metallica at that age, and I started getting into harder music. But again, it felt like they didn't really change their sound that much. Yes, they're not as heavy as they used to be, but they felt like it was still Metallica no matter what. So I guess it really depends on the change. Like you said, that Metallica they never changed their stuff whatsoever. But yet, when you look at albums like Load and Reload, and they changed it up, it sounds really freaking good, because it's not as heavy as before. And I don't know. I think it really depends on the change. If with Metallica, they still felt like they had their basis, like what I was talking about before. They still kept true to their foundation of rock, but they just tweaked it just a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. But there's like, so I watched Split this past weekend, and I just wanted to bring this point up since we're nearing the end. But I wanted to bring this point up. I watched Split this past weekend. If you haven't seen Split, go watch it. It's almost, in my opinion, it's close to the perfect movie. I don't know if there is such a thing, but I really, really enjoyed it. But Split was fantastic. I thought M. Night Shyamalan was back on his game after having so many duds. So I decided to watch an interview with him and James McAvoy, and they talked about their process for it. And one guy asked, you seem like you're back in the movie. What was your process on this movie compared to all the other ones that you seem like you're back? And M. Night Shyamalan basically told him that he just went back to basics. He went back to, okay, I can't work with anybody else I've worked with. That means he can't pull strings and be like, hey, Bruce, come on in, man. Like, you were in a couple of my films, or Will Smith, or Mark Wahlberg. Like, they can't bring anybody that he's worked with before. He doesn't have money. He doesn't have trailers. He even doesn't have his name back on it. He's going back to, I just want to tell a really, really good story. And he can't work with anybody else. So he got guys that were new into the business to be a cinematographer, producers, and all these other things. And to be the story, to be in the story. And I mean, when you come from that, he said that, because when you get with the experience and everything, your craft gets, you keep on like hiding your insecurities in your craft, or your craft gets so bolstered by what you already learned. And if you bring in more people that are already seasoned and everything, they just add more to it. Whereas if you get young, if you go back to basics, you like go on to your instincts, and that's where your craft turns. And that's where he thought this movie was. It was back to his instincts, and he just made instinctual like decisions. Like, I think he said the cinematographer was only had another movie or two other movies before this one, and he just picked them, and then the guy just went with whatever he had. The composer for this movie, this was his first movie. So like everything that was going, it wasn't about experience. It was more about the instincts and what was gravitating them towards that just gut feeling. And I think you can tell in the movie, like Split is just completely different than what I've seen and what I've seen from him as of late. And I'm just like, I was blown away by it. And I think that's where Linkin Park is. They have so many, like, they've been in the business and they've had people in the business around them for years and years and years, to where I think you almost feel this just shell over their craft and how they're just making it. Like back in the day with Hybrid Theory, it just sounds like they were playing in a garage and then they were like, hey, play that song in the studio. And that's all they did. They just played the song in the studio. They just made it sound better and sharper probably than what they were playing. And now there's so much coding and layers on this new songs that, I mean, it almost seems like there's just a disconnect almost. And even M. Night said that. He said, if there's an artist or a band that you've listened to and they touched you and there was a connect with them, and then you keep listening to that artist, and then all of a sudden they don't connect with you anymore. Like, where does the disconnect come from? And that's where he came up with the craft and how, like, more and more. So I just thought that was interesting. I wanted to bring that up and go see Split.
But I kind of feel as though that's what they were trying to kind of aim for with Linkin Park, where they scrapped everything, wanted to go back to basics, but they completely scrapped like everything that they know. And they were like, okay, so we're a rock band, but we're not really a rock band on this album. So that's how I kind of feel. Because like with Hunting Party, they went back to basics. They scrapped everything, and you can tell. But with this one, it's like, okay, we're scrapping like completely everything. We're stripping ourselves of what we know as far as a rock group, and we're going to go in this complete and utter different direction.
I don't know. I think you say that, and I think Huntington Party, they did completely scrap it and went back to basics, and I could tell. Like there was a connect with me where it almost took me back to the first time I listened to them when I was in my mom's church office watching Dragon Ball Z. I was watching Dragon Ball Z music videos that somebody made, and they like every song was like a Linkin Park song, and I was just like, "What is this group? I have to know what this group." And then I watched their music videos, and then I slowly learned all their music, and then I went and bought it at Best Buy, which I would never do ever again. I would never buy a CD at Best Buy. You can't even find CDs. Like, if you go in there thinking, I'm going to find this CD, they don't have it, and then just whatever. They only have like a shelf and a half for CDs, anyways. They're just like, oh, you want a shelf and a half? Well, we need more. We need more shelves for our children's DVDs. You can buy Apple iTunes cards. It's like, no, thank you. I don't know who there sounds like that, but whatever. But I think so. Hybrid Theory and Meteor, they're just starting out. They're getting traction and everything, and then they want to try something different. So they go and do Minutes to Midnight, but they grab Rick Rubin, right? They grab some guy who's super experienced in the music culture. He's done a ton of albums with Jay-Z, and he's produced a ton of albums, and he brings his experience on there. And granted, they probably learned so much invaluable things from him, but that's where the disconnect for me was. It didn't seem instinctual almost. I feel like Rick Rubin brought so much experience that he didn't make them do anything, but with his experience and his advice and his production, it kind of formed another shell or a layer over the craft. And that's where we get their sound in this one, and that's where the disconnect kind of comes from. Whereas in A Thousand Suns, it seems they're going to do something different, but I feel connect with it. And then Huntington Party. Whereas I feel like I don't think they went and did this new album, One More Light, just on their own. I don't think they did that. I feel like they had a lot more producers and productions and had to ask people and get more insight and helpful advice from everybody. And that's where we get this disconnect from. And I think that's where I get my disconnect from Minutes to Midnight and now this one. I don't know. I don't want to blame them trying to do something different, because I feel like like he said, he doesn't want to play the same song over and over and over again. Granted, this whole album sounds like the same song over and over and over again, and he's just going to play that more times than not because he wants to sell more albums. But I mean, I don't know. That's my whole thing with it.
Which is funny that you brought up Rick Rubin, because no wonder you didn't like Death Magnet, because he produced that. So I thought I would just bring that up.
Wow. Thanks, Rick. Ricky R. But yeah, what do you have anything about any of what I just said, or have a new point? I don't know. I don't know where to go from this, so I'm just asking.
Yeah, because I'm like, I think we've kind of driven our points across about. I mean, it's one thing is like, I have no words. Like, honestly, I'm running out of things to say about the album, because I'm still going to listen to Linkin Park, bottom line. No matter what, I'm still going to be a fan. It's okay not to like this album. It's okay to have a viewpoint of having this. And just don't stab yourself in the face or punch yourself in the face because of it. Linkin Park will still go on. They'll still make many other albums. This is just one album that a lot of people or a lot of fans are going to split down. They're going to split either left or right. Not many are going to be in the middle of it.
I agree. And to the fact that you said that it's okay to not like the album, I think it's also tell people it's okay to like the album. Like, I know there's a lot of things that gets a lot of flack in this, in our society. And it seems like we have to hide ourselves. Like, Nickelback is such just a terrible band to a lot of people, yet they keep on selling albums. Like, they wouldn't make music if they wouldn't sell the albums. And there's still people going to the concerts and going to the albums, yet everybody you ask, they're just like, oh, I don't listen to that. And it's like, you're okay to like what you like. Michael Bay gets a whole bunch of flack about his Transformers movies, yet they make billions and billions of dollars. Granted, it's a lot of international box offices, but again, you can like them. You can sit there and be like, yeah, I like the Transformers movies. I mean, I think there's a lot of like, yeah, I want to voice my opinion, but only when it's like bad about something. Whereas if somebody says, oh, I like this, then everybody jumps on them, and then it's just like, oh, well, let's not do that. Let's just all be one thing. Like, we don't have to all agree about something.
No, but I like how you put a positive spin on that, where it's okay to like the album. Because, I mean, I think there's plenty of, like, artists out there and also just individual songs that people are like, oh, no, I don't like. But then they say that it's, like, their guilty pleasure or whatnot. But if you could, I mean, if you like the album, I mean, you see something different or hear something different than I know from my point of view. Maybe you're a new fan and you like the direction that they already are on with this album and you go forth with it, or you're an old fan and you were like, okay, well, I'm kind of liking this new direction as well. But it just, because I keep bringing up the fact that it's okay not to like the album, is because it feels as though Mike and Chester keep driving home the fact that if you don't like the album, F you, basically. Which, again, I understand. Mm-hmm. But they should also take in consideration what the fans are saying. So maybe that way the next album, if they still want to go in this exact same, direction for the new one, maybe they can do something different or something like that. That can appease their creative outlets and also appease their fans.
Right. I definitely agree with that. I mean, and like I said earlier, when you produce new music and a new CD, you're bound to lose some fans that are going to say, yeah, this isn't my thing. I'm done for now. And then you got some fans that are going to be new. And like, what was it? My friend, who we differ on musical tastes, and I was a huge Linkin Park fan. He did not like any of their stuff just because they were so hardcore and everything. And then Minutes to Midnight came out, and there was a disconnect for me, but there was a connection for him. So he was like, oh, I really like the new Linkin Park album. And to me, I was like, why? This isn't Linkin Park. But again, there's going to be those people that listen to like Heavy and get something from it, and they're going to listen to the whole album, and they're going to be like, oh, this is all the similar. And they might go listen to Hybrid Theory and be like, oh, this is not what I signed up for. They might like 1,000 Suns more. But, I mean, you're still going to have those fans that are going to be like, nope, not doing it anymore. I've sat through 3 albums I didn't like. Whereas there's going to be fans that are going to be new and pick it up and be like, oh, I like One More Light. I'll see what happens 3 years when they come out with another album. So, but that's the risk you take when you produce an album and a new one and you just keep coming out with it. Or you're going to be like Plain White T's, who keep on putting out albums and they still have Hey There Delilah on 3 of the albums that come out. And you're just like,
shut up, really?
Yeah, they had Hey There Delilah like twice. They had in 2 CDs back to back. They had Hey There Delilah on both CDs because they're just like, hey, if you don't like that CD, you might like Hey There Delilah if you didn't pick up the other one. But yeah. So I mean, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to be like, hey, everybody, let's grab hands and form a line on the earth. It's just like, that's why there's so much music. You can pick whatever you want, listen to whatever you want. Don't listen to whatever you want. Trust me, I do. I don't listen to a lot of stuff because I don't care about it.
Yeah, even if people suggest things. Even though I'm very happy that you actually listened to the hunting party. So I was very proud of you in that moment.
Yeah, I'm gonna listen to more of it, and less of One More Light. That's just my opinion, and I'm not gonna stab myself in the face for it. And that's about it. So that was Tell Me Rune. Episode 8, the Linkin Park cast. We'll probably not do another one of these until they come out with another album in 3 years. So you have a lot to go from there. But we're going to go back to normal format of 2 to 3 topics, talking about movies, TV, and music, or just movies, or just TV, or just movies and TV, and forget music because we just talked about it for an hour. Wow, that was a lot of rambling for nothing. Anyways, thank you for listening. You can subscribe to our Twitter. We have Instagram of Tell Me Rune. We're just starting that, so, and you can listen to this podcast on iTunes hopefully by Thursday. If you're listening to it late, it's up. You can listen to it now. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can listen to it on iTunes. And if you're listening to it on iTunes, you can listen to this on YouTube and see my cool little custom thumbnail.
Oh my god.
I like my thumbnails. Anyways, yeah. So until next week, I don't have a line to say at the end. So until next week.